Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be part of my end of the year content. I'm doing a ton of videos wrapping up 2025 and looking ahead to 2026. A lot of them you can already watch on my channel, but if you subscribe, you won't miss the new ones I upload in the future. So in this video, we're going to talk about the 2025 releases I ended up reading last year. I feel like this year I didn't read too many. I ended up reading 15 books that were published in 2025. I think because I had that whole TBR reduction thing going on, I didn't end up reading as many new releases as maybe I would have liked to, but still here are the ones that I did get around to. Now, the first one was one of the big new releases of last year, and that was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This was the Hunger Games prequel following Haymitch's story, and I did enjoy reading this book. I didn't love it as much as some people. I think also because when I hear people talk about how emotional a book has been for them, and I hear that over and over, then I go in with too much expectation, and then it's not emotional for me because I went in expecting it to be very emotional. So I think that's kind of what happened here. Overall, I enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I think one criticism I had as well is that it just felt like it took all the other Hunger Games books and just mushed it into one. So we're kind of making all of Katniss's progress in 3 books with Haymitch in this one book. Then I read Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man. This is the second Vera Wong book by Jessie Q. Sutanto, and in this one we follow Vera Wong as she is again solving a crime. This one it is kind of a murder or a disappearance that might have been a murder. So we're looking into this man who has disappeared and a woman who is trying to find him, and so she enlists the help of Vera. Again, Vera is muddling with all of her suspects as well, so I really loved this one. I even liked it a little bit more than the first book because I just felt like it was even more sad as well, and I think it is really hard if you're writing kind of a cozy mystery but with such very sad themes, and I think Jessie Q. Sutanto did a great job of balancing things. Then I read Gifted and Talented by Olivie Blake. This was a book I was kind of interested in. This was pitched as a kind of Succession fantasy story. Now, I have never watched Succession, but I did always think it looked kind of interesting, so I wanted to check this book out, and it was available through Libby, which is usually a thing that makes it more likely for me to pick up a new release. So this one I did like. It's a very, very messy book, which I sometimes do really enjoy. I usually enjoy a messy story, let's just say that. But I felt in this one, it leaned into the trashy direction a little bit too much for me. I like my mess to have a bit of a deeper meaning, and I don't think that Gifted and Talented really went there. But yeah, there were some twists and turns, but in general, I would say this book was just too long. Then I finished off a series that was very newly finished, and that was Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. This is the 3rd and final book in this trilogy following Emily Wilde, who is a researcher, and she is interested in fairies and going to different places, figuring stuff out about fairies that no other researcher has ever figured out about them. And on her side is her colleague slash nemesis slash lover. And I really enjoyed this final book. I think it was my favorite book in the series. I felt like the way everything came together was really fun. And we do have this kind of fairy cat that I just loved. I love her. She's so cool. So yeah, I had a really, really good time with this finale. Then I read Universality by Natasha Brown. I had read her first book. I don't quite remember what it was called now, but I did enjoy that one. So I was intrigued to see what Natasha Brown would write next. However, this one didn't quite work for me. It's one of those books where I felt like I'm just a little bit too dumb to understand what's going on. I think you also need to know a lot more about British media and the kind of topics that are discussed there currently, and I don't know anything about that. So unfortunately, this book just went way over my head. This is a book where we have a gold bar and someone is attacked with it, and then the attacker and the gold bar disappear, and And in the first half of the book, you have kind of like a newspaper article that really dives deep into what has happened there. And that part was really interesting. But then the next parts, I just didn't quite get it. Then I read one of my most anticipated books of the year, and unfortunately this one was a bit of a disappointment, and that was Somadina by Akwaeke Emezi. Now, Akwaeke Emezi is one of my favorite authors. I absolutely love Pat. Pat is one of my favorite books of all time, and Somadina, again, is a YA fantasy book, so I thought maybe it would be just as great as Pat. It wasn't quite that, and the author's note at the end of the book also gave kind of an explanation for that, because Somadina is actually one of the first stories they came up with and is now just published after a lot of their other books. And while I think they probably cleaned up the story quite a bit for publication, it still felt like the core idea of it is just not as refined as some of the other books by Akwaeke Emezi. So I still had a good time with it, but I was quite frustrated with the main characters. We do follow a pair of twins in this series, and mainly we follow Somadina, who is the girl in the twin pair, and her brother gets taken. It's also about kind of the prejudices of the village people who think that twins are bad luck, and so also about the mother. There was just so much in it, and a lot of it just gave me a bit of a bad feeling, also because of like personal experiences and stuff. So yeah, it wasn't the high that I thought it would be, but it was still a good book. And it's also a fantasy inspired by Nigerian mythology and culture, so I thought that part was really well done. Then we go back to one of the highlights of my year, and that was The Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandanna. I was so excited for this book to finally come out because I had really enjoyed the first book by the author as well, and this one I liked even better. I think Sangu Mandanna has a way to mix the witchy, the fantasy plot, and the romance in a way that just works perfectly for me. You have this cozy situation with the magical inn, but you do have a bit of a tragic backstory to our main character because she almost lost her aunt, and to bring her aunt back to life she had to give up her magic. Then you have the romance part where there is a character who could help her bring her magic back, and they have a bit of like a spark. And then you also have the whole like fantasy plot of this like guild and like the power plays within that also plays into her ability to actually get her magic back. So I think the mixture is just perfect, and I had a very good time reading this book. From the highs, we go back to, well, not quite the lows, but like the mess. So we do have My Friends by Fredrik Backman. Again, this was a book that I mainly just read because it was available on Libby, and I saw so many of my friends read it and really love it, so I thought I'd check it out. Unfortunately, this book was in a way one of the worst books I read last year, not because it's a bad book, but because of the content. It's a lot about childhood trauma, and for me personally, it just brought up so many like memories and just like pains of like my childhood that it was not enjoyable to read at all. Like I had such a hard time reading this book, and I had to take breaks and stuff, and so the payoff of this, like of all the suffering I went through, it was not worth it. Like the story it tells isn't really great. A lot of that is basically two people sitting in a train talking, and so it was just not worth it for me. Like all the pain it brought up, not worth this story. Then I got to one of the new spooky books we got this year, and that was The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This is a cannibal story where we follow a daughter and a mother who live in the woods, and whenever people get lost in the woods and show up on their doorstep, they end up as dinner. And everything changes when one day a woman shows up, and she has a way about her, so she does not end up as dinner, and that kind of changes the family dynamics. I really had a good time with this one. I wouldn't say it's my favorite horror, but definitely I enjoyed it, and I especially liked how the audiobook was narrated. We're going back to more of a disappointment, and again, I read this because it was available on Libby, and that is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by W.E. Schwab. Now, this was only my second W.E. Schwab book, and so I don't really have like a fixed opinion on her writing yet. However, I just have a feeling that W.E. Schwab books aren't quite for me, so this one, I don't know. Again, it was too long. It was definitely too long for me. We are following three women who, in their own ways, get in touch with vampires in the story. And this is a lot about like toxic, kind of lesbian vampire relationships. But yeah, I just didn't feel like the book did new or interesting with this, and so personally for me it was not a new favorite. I was also quite disappointed that this one won the fantasy category of the Goodreads Choice Awards, because yeah, is this even like fantasy? Like, you know, I don't know. I just didn't love it. Then we have The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. Again, more of a spooky read, and this one I was very, very excited about because I loved Yellow Jessamine by Caitlin Starling, and this novella and the new book, The Starving Saints, which is a full-length novel, they do have very similar vibes, I would say. However, The Starving Saints, again, was just too long. I think I would have enjoyed it as a novella, but as the story went on, I just realized that while I was listening to it, my mind was drifting quite a bit. I wasn't always paying like close attention to it. And so, yeah, I feel like it dragged on a little bit too long for me. In this one, we follow three women who are trapped in this castle that is under siege, and they have now just run out of food. So one of the women is kind of an alchemist who is trying to conjure food from nothing. One woman is a knight who's trying to protect her lord, and one woman is a former noblewoman who her father basically was accused of treason, and so she's lost everything and is now seeking revenge. And everything in the story changes when the saints show up and they bring food and nobody knows where they came from. Then we're getting into the festive books, and I read Cooking Up a Christmas Storm by Amelia Berry. This was a very sweet kind of Christmassy romance story where we follow a woman who is completely down on her luck. Her ex-girlfriend just left her, but then she gets a call from this remote cookery school, and they want to hire her ex-girlfriend. The ex-girlfriend has already gone and moved on and has a new job, so our main character decides to pretend to be her ex-girlfriend and take on this job, and then trouble ensues. And I had a really good time with this one. I think it's a very, very fun, messy Christmas book if you're looking for that. Then I read Cozy for the Holidays by Liz Maverick. This is a Hanukkah romance. Unfortunately, this one did not quite work for me because it is a friends to lovers, and I'm just not a friends to lovers girly, but it was still very sweet. This is about a girl who is grieving her mother's death. She really can't get over it, and her best friend just bought a house, and when he moves in, the apartment that was meant to be furnished is not furnished. However, the store downstairs that he also bought that was supposed to be empty is still a functional bookstore. And so they band together over the Hanukkah holiday to run this bookstore together. Then I read Christmas Ever After by Michelle Stimpson. This is a Christmas romance where we follow the mayor of a town and a movie star who is in town to film a Christmas movie, and they have the spark. This one focused a lot on the female main character and kind of the toxic traits that she inherited from her mother, who was a very successful mayor before her. I had an okay time with this one. I just didn't quite get the Christmassy sparks that I was hoping for with the story. And then the last one was just a short novella that I still enjoyed a whole lot, and that is The Knight and the Butcherbird by Alix E. Harrow. And this one is is about a dystopian world where we have kind of like two kinds of people. We have people who live in rural areas, and then we have people who live in these enclaves that are pretty much like the big cities, like what's left of them. And in these cities, we do have knights who are trained to kill demons. And one of these knights comes to this small town to hunt a demon that has been reported. And he kind of talks a lot with the storyteller of that community. And yeah, it just is about the question of like, why do these demons appear and how are they made? And it's kind of like about love and about how sometimes people we love change and the question of whether we can change with them. And I really enjoyed that. It was a very, very good short story. So these were all the 2025 releases that I managed to read last year. In the comments, I would love to hear what were your favorite new releases that you've read. Please let me know, because I know that there were a ton that I missed out on. Usually I miss out on a lot of like ongoing series because I prefer to read a series once they're finished. But yeah, I know there is like a ton of like standalone books as well that I really wanted to read, but then I just never found the time to do so. So yeah, I hope this video was enjoyable. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to see more from me. I would love to have you here, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!